T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay, now I just clicked all the buttons, and what I'm afraid of is there's going to be a nasty, been saying it since the early 90s when I started freelance, computers are evil. It was a joke back then, but boy, is this prescient. No. I belong in front of the camera, not behind it. How about now? Is it working? John, we got audio? I'm chatting with John. Thank you for the 11 who are hanging in there. God bless you. John Margoni. I'm sorry for butchering your name. Is there an echo or is it clean audio, John Margoni? Not to be confused with Marconi. I'm sure you got that your entire life, like I got graham cracker. John, what I'm asking you, is there any nasty echo or is it clean? Tell me, is it clean or not clean? And then I'm going to proceed. Thank you for Ghostwalker for leaving, by the way. Ghostwalker left me. So, Margon, it's clean. All right, John, thanks. I'm just going to call you John. John gets to ask the first question if you hang in there, John. By the way, if you would like to send me an email, it's grahamledger411@gmail.com. grahamledger411@gmail.com. And I will try and look at that as well as the live chats. Now, I'm going to reset, okay? Because what I was telling you was that this is what I meant to do, is do live television. Not the technical side of things, obviously, but in front of the camera. You know, when we first went on the air at One American News, there's so many behind-the-scenes stories I could tell you. I really should write a book, although I'm afraid of being sued. But when we went on the air in 2013, July 4th, 2013, I'm positive nobody was watching. And it's one of those things where you just kind of did your job, and you knew that over time people would start watching. And lo and behold, people did, and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands tuned in, including a guy named Donald Trump. And that was really great to be able to know that when Donald Trump was in the White House in his first term, that he was watching once in a while. That was really maybe one of the highlights of my career. But I'll tell you, you know, one of the executive orders that Donald Trump 2.0 just signed is the order for federal workers to come back to the office and not work in their pajamas anymore, and not go to the refrigerator every couple of hours, and not wear slippers, and not order stuff from Amazon, and not have the cat on your lap. I'm sorry, I'm a purist on that. I hate working at home. I'm not productive at home because I see something on the baseboards that needs to be cleaned or painted. I see a little job that needs caulking, or, you know, I'm not a daytime TV watcher. I've never been. My mom drilled it in my head, never do that, so I don't. But the bottom line is, working at home, you know, it's funny, during the COVID debacle, the shameful period that we had to live through, the phony pandemic, which wasn't. Not saying the virus didn't exist. The virus existed, it just wasn't bad. It wasn't killer any more than the flu was. And I'm not going to rehash all that stuff, but my record is clear, and you know what my record was on that, because you can look it up. I was the lone voice in the wilderness. And often I am. To this day, I'm a lone voice in the wilderness, but rarely wrong. And remember, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. So working from home, that was one of the first things that Donald Trump undid, and God bless him for that, because he's right on target. Where is, I can't believe I did that. In my haste to fix things, I shut something down that I needed to have here. Let's see, where is this? I'm sorry, this is live television, and it's, here it is. I needed to pull up the 40, Donald Trump has signed 40 executive orders. Now, if you go to my website, grahamledger.com, you'll see on there among the 10 constitutional amendments I think we need. Number 10 is ban all presidential executive orders, including retroactively. I'm not saying immediately, but the problem with executive orders is it's great when your guy's in the office. It's horrible when the other guy's in the office, because basically with an executive order, a president can play king, queen, and judge, jury, and executioner, and that's not the way our framers wanted it. I know for a fact that James Madison would be aghast right now of what presidents, modern presidents, do in terms of executive orders, because there's no consent of the governed. There isn't. And that's what our system is all about. So I believe executive orders should be unconstitutional. Now that said, they're not, and so you've got to play the game. This is something the Republicans do horribly, but Donald Trump is doing very, very well. The first thing he did was withdraw the United States from the World Health Organization. I don't know, that's a standing ovation. And the Paris Climate Accord, I don't know, I'm skipping around here. He's trying to figure out what to do with TikTok. He's granting pardons and commutations to the J6 people. Well, of course, everybody with a brain understands that was political persecution. Putting America first in environmental agreements, you know what that means. The windmills out there that are costing more money and a bigger footprint environmentally than they are worth are not going to be happening anymore. We're going to drill, baby, drill. Hiring freeze, I assume that's the federal government. This is an article out of the Gateway Pundit. Regulatory freeze, return to in-person work. As we said, this is the no more pajama executive order. Ending the weaponization of the federal government. Now, we'll talk more on that in just a minute, because that's hard to do via executive order. Restoring freedom of speech, ending censorship, securing our borders, and protecting the meaning of the value of American citizenship. Now, what that, I believe, is, I'm going to stop there, because you probably know the rest of these. But this one's very important. I believe this is the birthright citizenship. Now, if you followed me at all, you know that birthright citizenship does not exist for anybody whose parents are not U.S. citizens. And I've debated even conservatives on this. But there is the law, there is the 14th Amendment, and then there's also the intent. But remember, the 14th Amendment was a post-slavery, a post-Civil War amendment, okay? So this was applying to a specific group of people at a specific time, namely blacks, slaves in the South. Okay, so that was the intent of the 14th Amendment. But the 14th Amendment is pretty clear, and it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. Now, all persons born or naturalized in the United States. So, we have the woman from Guatemala stumbles over the border, squats, and has a baby. Is that baby born in the United States, but is that baby a U.S. citizen? The answer is no. Why, Graham? I'm doing my own chat. Why, Graham? Because of the second line. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. What jurisdiction is the woman from Guatemala under? Guatemala. She is not under the jurisdiction of Texas or California or Arizona or New Mexico, wherever she squatted. Okay? She's under the jurisdiction. She's here illegally. And frankly, even if you were here legally, it's debatable whether you are under the jurisdiction of the United States or still under the jurisdiction of the country from which you came. I would argue you're still under the jurisdiction from the country which you came. So, if you came here legally from India and you're working on an H-1B visa here at IBM, and they have a baby here, is that baby a U.S. citizen? I would argue no. Because these are not the Indians with a dot, not a feather, The Indians are not U.S. citizens, okay? So I want to make sure this program is about you, okay? I don't want to go on too much about this, but I just want to load you with the arguments. And we'll get to some other stuff in just a minute. And by the way, on my website right now, a pertinent question that you can chat the answer. Will President Trump be able to permanently reduce the size and scope of the federal government? Now, the key word in that question, if we had to diagram it, remember diagramming sentences? I'm sure they don't do that anymore. Instead, they teach how to put a condom on a cucumber. Permanent. So you can issue all the executive orders in the world, and then in 2028, when Gavin Newsom sits there, I hope I'm wrong, but when Gavin Newsom is sitting there, guess what Gavin Newsom's going to do? You know what he's going to do. You imagine a president, Gavin Newsom? Well, it's a possibility. So you can look at my page on my website. It's called the Amendments drop down or menu item on grahamledger.com, grahamledger.com. So let's go to the questions. I've got a bunch that you sent me via email on grahamledger411@gmail.com. I'm going to quickly check the chats. The chat of, bear with me on this, I'm still learning. Where did my live feed go? Hey, at least you can hear me. Oh, there I am. Okay. It was really bad in Buffalo. Everyone was wearing masks. University, yeah, during COVID. We know that. Okay, if you got any questions on the chat, go ahead and hit me with them now. And again, my record on COVID and the entire phony government response is clear. And people ask me to this day, why were you so certain about masks? Or why were you so certain that the disease wasn't going to kill millions of people? I wasn't certain that the disease was going to kill millions of people, but what I was certain of was our God-given rights, the Christian Bible, and our constitutional rights. And when you intersect the two, you don't shut down schools, you don't shut down beaches, you don't shut down parks, you don't shut down businesses, you don't destroy people's lives. You deal with it like human beings. And if people are scared to stay home, stay home. But you don't force people in a constitutional republic, and you don't force people under the Bible to do things that they don't want to do. It was disgusting to me to live through that era, especially in California. Here's a email from Joseph, just got it. Me thinks Biden in the White House was a double with DNA tests. Okay, that's number one. Joe, I hear some people say that in the whole mask thing. I've seen that a million times. Let's just move on to number two. I think the intel agencies need to be brought under one leader and half the size. Okay, I think that this is an important issue, Joe. I think that we need to reduce the size and scope of government. And that's why I have that question on my website. Will Donald Trump be able to permanently reduce the size and scope of government? I don't believe that if we cut the CIA or the FBI in half, if we eliminated ATF, that this country would be any less safe. In fact, it might be more safe. Do more with less. The people in the FBI, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, have the, hey, you can't touch me attitude, just like a lot of federal workers do. And we all know how disgusting it is to go to the DMV. Well, that's basically what it's like to work at the federal government. They just slow walk, not everyone, but a lot of the federal government. I mean, think about the post office, okay? There's the greatest example. And I want to talk about the post office. I just swerved into something I was going to talk about later, but if you were to want to go out with this Doge thing, and I just hate the idea of creating a government agency to eliminate government agencies. It's just, I have a problem with that. If you want to tell Elon Musk to be lord over the government and advise the president on where to use a machete or a hatchet or a chainsaw to, that's fine. But I don't want another government agency, period. End of story. I want to eliminate government agencies. And so we start with the post office. It is in the United States Constitution that the job of, one of the jobs of the federal government, and there's only a few, by the way, only a few jobs delineated in the United States Constitution, but one of them is to move the mail. Okay, fine. Doesn't say how. So we open it up to bidders and DHL wins. And then we tell DHL, you got 4 years. Remember, we're dealing with either a 2 or a 4 year window here with Donald Trump because we don't know what the future holds. 2 years because we don't know what the future holds with the congressional election cycle in 2026. So he's got a 2 year window, pedal to the metal, 4 year overall to get certain things done. Pedal to the metal in 2 years, 4 years to button it up. And so the directive is we're going to privatize, and I don't even know if, I would have to think about this, if a president could do this on his own. I'm pretty sure it would take Congress, so that's fine. In the 2 year window, pass a bill that says there's a 4 year sunset window for the United Postal Service, U.S. Postal Service, because it's a disaster. And it's being destroyed in part mostly by the golden parachutes that all the postal workers have that we pay for. Okay, no more. So there's a 4 year window to sunset the post office. Why don't we start there, Elon? Let's start at the post office that everybody knows they hate, just like the DMV, because it's a disgusting operation, because it is a mess, because it is run by bureaucrats who care more about the process. I mean, think about going to the post office. You got to send a letter, or when you're there mailing stuff at Christmas. It's the process, right? They don't care about the outcome. They care about the process. Your outcome and your experience at the post office is horrible, but the process is what's important. Oh, you didn't have the right extra 4 numbers after the zip code. Back to the end of the line. It's the process that's important. So start with the post office and say, and have Congress say, that's it, no more. It's going to be privatized. The federal government's going to oversee it. Fine. We'll still have a postmaster general who interfaces with the private sector. That's it. And then let the private sector, DHL or whoever, decide, here, these are all your brick and mortar locations. And, by the way, I would bring in Amazon, who has, figured out a way to somehow get me my belt that I ordered within 24 hours on my doorstep. It's unbelievable to me what Amazon does. So consult with Amazon, consult, of course, with all the private carriers. And who knows, maybe we met it out to regionally, where FedEx does the West Coast and UPS does the East Coast and DHL does the, it doesn't really matter. Just let the private sector handle it, because clearly the private sector knows how to move stuff, mail and otherwise. So 4 years, close it down, that's it. This is from Lori. Greetings from Texas. I like all 4 of these men: Flynn, Pompeo, Giuliani, Bongino, any word in their involvement in the Trump administration. Okay. Let's start with Dan. I know Dan. I don't know. That one I just don't know. Giuliani is radioactive. He is our mayor. He's the country's mayor, and he's a great patriot, and he's a smart dude, but he is absolutely radioactive. And that's the last thing the Trump administration probably wants, is a distraction. Pompeo is a traitor. Don't trust Pompeo. Okay? He's one of them. He is not one of us. And he has shown his stripes repeatedly. And as for General Flynn, with whom I know personally and have worked with personally, I don't know on that one. I was just talking about that with Special Ed the other day, and I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one, and I haven't talked to him in 9 months, so I just don't know. I do think that overall, President Trump is doing a pretty good job, I think, of filling out all the positions. And, I think we're in a good position. John, my buddy John, who was helping me with the audio, says, without executive orders, how can a chief executive govern his branch of government? Well, by definition, John, the chief executive is, what is the chief executive's job per the United States Constitution? Do you know what it is? It's very simple. It's to execute the laws of the land. So that's it. If the framers of the Constitution wanted executive orders, they would have installed a king-like position in the presidency, but they didn't. In fact, when we were setting up government, when they were setting up government in 1787 or prior to that, there wasn't even talk of a chief executive. They were going to have government just with the legislature, and then a judicial branch. And then memory is not serving me right now, but I don't think it was Madison who came up with the idea of a chief executive. I think it was George Washington or someone along, maybe it was Franklin, who came up with the idea of having some sort of chief executive to make sure that the laws passed by Congress were executed and followed through with. And that is the job. And if we need, for example, if we need to suddenly define the two genders as male and female, then let Congress do it. The president, God bless Trump in his position now, because again, this is the rules we're playing by. So he sends an executive order out there that says the definition or not the definition, I guess, there are only two genders. How is that breaking news exactly? I guess in California it'd be breaking news, huh? Breaking news, Donald Trump has just lied to everybody saying there's only two genders. When we all know there's 17,843 here in California. On to other news. This email comes to us from Paul. I don't know where Paul lives, but since Biden pardoned the guilty, what can President Trump do to simply expose the guilty American people? That would be Biden's family, Liz Cheney, Mark Milley, Anthony Fauci. I believe it's in the Constitution, somewhere in there, about presidential pardons. But this has gone haywire, I think we would all agree. I was telling Special Ed, how do we know that Biden didn't give himself a pocket pardon? As far as I know, there's no rule out there that says you have to announce who's pardoned, right? So Biden, on the way out, along with this other move that he made, may have pardoned himself in perpetuity and just pocketed it. And then if somebody goes after him, he'll say, here it is. But the interesting thing about the pardons, and these Congress people on the January 6th so-called committee, execution squad is what it was, they have a dilemma, because if they accept the pardon, and you don't have to accept the presidential pardon, but if Adam Kinzinger accepts the pardon, then if he's hauled before Congress or in court, he has, on this matter, waived his Fifth Amendment right of self-incrimination. So in other words, he could be tarred and feathered and could incriminate himself possibly on another matter because he doesn't have the ability to say, I take the Fifth Amendment. Isn't that fascinating? It's a fascinating concept. This email from Sherry: did Vivek Ramaswamy quit Dodge because Elon Musk made it too difficult to stay? I've read Peter Thiel's book. Was it 0 to 1? I think is what it was called. And he kind of skirts around Elon Musk. Of course, Thiel and Musk, and I think a third player, started PayPal. And it's interesting, I don't know if you know this, but Elon Musk has always been fascinated with X. And so now we have SpaceX, and of course he famously or infamously changed Twitter from Twitter to X. He wanted to call PayPal X, according to Peter Thiel. And Peter, I think, in that book, kind of nibbled around the edges that Elon Musk is a character, and a very smart character, but still nonetheless a character. And who knows, it could be that there was a bit of a clash there. But Ramaswamy is going to run for something in Ohio, the Ohio State University. Why do they say that? The Ohio State University. I don't know, but congratulations. But he wants to run for something in Ohio, possibly governor, possibly Senate. And I'm going to check my chat real quick here. The Articles of Confederation was so weak, it became clear that many they needed a chief executive. Yeah, right. That's correct, John. And I appreciate all 17 people watching. Isn't that something? I used to have 17,000 or 170,000 people watching. 17. Hey, it's the inaugural Ledger Report live, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all 17 of you. Here's an email from Steve. Prior to the Supreme Court case Reynolds-Sims, every state in the, he must mean country here, had a state senator. Reynolds-Sims changed that to population-based allotment in California. Okay, I get your point. Steve, I believe you're talking about how the United States Senate was initially set up. If you look on my website, on amendments, number 5, I say very simply, repeal the 16th and the 17th Amendments. 16th Amendment created income tax, which I believe is not only unconstitutional, but I believe it's immoral to tax people's income. And I believe that, like Donald Trump believes, that this country can run on tariffs alone, and it can run lean. And if it's not enough money to run, the Department of Energy, then we shut it down. More on that in just a minute, I think. But the 16th Amendment, I believe, should be repealed, and the 17th Amendment. 17th Amendment was one of the greatest debacles, as was the 16th Amendment in our country's history, and it changed the makeup of the Senate and the way we elect senators. They used to be elected through our state legislatures, so our state legislatures had representation, i.e. their residents through the legislature had representation in D.C. Now we elect them directly, just like we elect Congress. It's not what the framers of the Constitution wanted. Absolutely not. And I believe there's only one way to address your question, and that is to eliminate the 17th Amendment. That's it. This email is from Peter. I miss you on TV. Thank you. Well, here we are. Peter, if you're watching. If you're not, you can catch this on tape. Wish you would be visible on some news network. If I got a call from Fox or whatever out there, even CNN, I would do my best to make sure that I had a presence there, because I think that somebody like me is not visible anywhere. I don't know why, because what I try and do, initially when I started the Daily Ledger, I tried to have a video version, a television version of Mark Levin's radio show. And Mark Levin's way smarter than I am, and a huge constitutional scholar. But I wanted to have a blunt conversation with the American people, as we're having now, whether it's immigration or what have you. And you know what my stance is on immigration. I've lived along the border until recently. I've lived along the border most of my adult life. I know what the border is like, and I know it's hell on earth, and it needs to stop. And I was screaming from the highest mountain 10, 15, 20 years ago about illegal immigration, and here we are today. And I believe that Donald Trump is going, I would love to help him on this effort with Homan and trying to execute Operation Wetback 2.0. In 1954, Operation Wetback was executed by the Eisenhower administration, and that operation was designed to remove illegals in this country, and it worked. It worked. And knowing that as the background, if we embark on Operation Wetback 2.0, I would love to be a part of it, because I think that it's one part physically doing the job and one part getting the word out in a PR sense. And I think the PR aspect is crucial, because if you know anything about Operation Wetback 1.0 in 1954, it turned out that about half the deportations were self-deported. And I think that in this day and age, with all the communication out there, I think that number, that 50% number, if there are 20 million illegals in this country, I don't know if that's accurate or not, that could be a low number. I mean, there's probably 5 million alone in California, or more. it's at 20 million. I believe that if we can extract 3/4 of that number, I believe that you could probably, through self-deportation, extract 8, 9 million, because they know you're coming and you got to get out of the way of migra. This is the same email from Peter. As far as my biggest concern, other than the obvious crime, immigration, lawfare, economy, I would like to see campaigns funded by the people. Campaign finance reform. Let me hit you with this. Again, I go back to my amendments page on my website. What if we, instead of worrying about campaign finance reform and how they are, what if we, on a federal level, made it impossible for a Nancy Pelosi or a Chuck Schumer to ever exist again? What if we did something like that? In other words, what if we had term limits? And I've had some conservatives argue with me on this one, and they say, well, you know, we have term limits. It's called elections, or the framers didn't give us term limits. I realize both of those. But the problem is, this is 2025. And it's clear that as a people, in the aggregate, we're either too stupid or too lazy to do our jobs, and that is term limit these people. So we have to admit that. And so we need to put an automatic term limit in there. And I believe 1 and you're done. And I know I'm probably going down Peter Pan's ride in Disneyland right now. And all fantasy. But I believe in 1 and you're done. Senate, Congress, the presidency, you can leave it alone. But I also believe that there has to be term limits for this to work on just federal workers, non-elected federal workers. FBI, whatever department you're in, IRS. I would like to eliminate IRS, but as long as it exists, you need to have term limits at every level of government so we don't have these ensconced, corrupt individuals in the FBI and in DOJ and what have you anymore. We've got to return to the concept of public service. And for that matter, also on my list of constitutional amendments, and you know, this is going to be fantastically crazy to some people, but I believe congressional salaries should be used, instead of giving them to the members of Congress, they should be used to pay down the IOUs at Social Security and Medicare. In other words, reestablish the trust funds using those salaries. And I don't know how long that's going to be, but let's say it'll be 10 years, and then, okay, we've got the trust funds back. Then you know what you do with those congressional salaries? You sunset them altogether. Gone. In other words, you want to run for Congress? Fine, AOC, you can run, but guess what? You're going to serve 1 term, and you're going to do public service, and you're not going to be paid, and so you have to go back to your bartending job. That's all. How do you like them apples? Now, I know you're going to say to me, well, what about Ted Cruz? You know, we would lose Ted Cruz in the Senate. Okay, we'd lose Ted Cruz in the Senate. But there are many other Ted Cruzes out there. This would effectively eliminate K Street. Think about that. K Street would not be able to get its clutches into any member of Congress on the House side, and very, very little on the Senate side if you had 1 and you're done. If you had term limits and you had these people who didn't have a salary, okay, well, they could be susceptible to corruption. Well, they all could be. And then you could argue, well, then only the wealthy are going to run. Okay, well, maybe. But that's the system our framers set up. Frankly, if we had that system, I think it would eliminate most people running for Congress, because they also, you know, in the back of their mind, they see that juicy $147,000 salary or whatever the heck it is now. Did they sneak in the raise? I don't even remember. But the bottom line is, make it public service. Make it public service. And that would skew probably most people running for Congress either on the very young side or the older side. Okay, so what? So what? Maybe more moms would run for Congress. I don't really care. I don't vote for people because of the color of their skin or whether they wear a dress or they wear pants. I would vote for someone because they're good, or I wouldn't vote for them because they're bad. That's simple. Okay, back to the questions here. This is from Linda. Dear Graham, how's life been different for you since you moved away from California? Financially, socially, welcoming, trans, gays? I don't even know what you mean by that, Linda. I miss California. I miss my daughter. I really do. And maybe the California that I miss doesn't exist anymore. I know it doesn't exist anymore. So that's the California I miss. I guess I miss the old days. But I do miss, like, Yosemite. People forget that the highest peak, mountain peak in the United States is in California. No one even talks about that. Mount Whitney. No, it hasn't been renamed by Obama. These people out there who say, well, can Trump even rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America? Well, why not? What did Obama do to Denali in Mount McKinley? No, yeah, Mount McKinley in Alaska. He named it Denali, and Trump's going to say, no, we're putting that one back too. So did Obama have the ability to do that? It's the Gulf of America. Why not the Gulf of America? Things change. People can change stuff like this. Of course, the left hates it, and they won't even say it. I was watching the news last night, and they still say Gulf of Mexico. They're going to do that. They're going to do it for a long time, and then one day they're probably going to get a memo from management saying, you know what? I guess we just might as well go with Gulf of America because everybody else is saying it. So, don't worry about it. We'll just keep saying Gulf of America, and we'll get funny looks from some people, Gulf of America. America, just to remind everybody, is not the United States. America are continents. North America, South America. Okay? So it's not like he's naming it the Gulf of Trump. It's the Gulf of America, okay? And a lot of people, misuse the term America, for the United States, but in reality, we're not. We are the United States of America. This email from Joseph. Happy to see you on YouTube. I've been a follower since your primetime 8 p.m. show on One America News. I agree with your way of thinking. Patriotism, we need Republican control for more than this upcoming 4-year term to clean up this mess. Yeah, I would say you're correct, Joe. That's why I say we have to act like we only have 2 years because we don't know in 2026 what's going to happen. Remember what happened in 2000? People seem to have a convenient memory. I don't know why when I remind people that the Republicans had control of Congress in 2017, 2018 under Paul Ryan. And what did Paul Ryan do? He misled the White House on many issues, including building the wall, that there wasn't support, when obviously there was support. And what did they get done? They got the Trump tax cuts. That's about it. This is a moment in time to instill fundamental, permanent change by law or by constitutional amendment. I would start by law, and then I would roll these permanent changes, these attempts at permanent changes, not all of them, but some of them. For example, if you're going to try and eliminate the IRS, obviously that's going to take a constitutional amendment. But if you're trying to eliminate the Department of Energy, which is what I need to be hearing more of from the Trump White House, Department of Energy, EPA, education, I'm not hearing that they're going to shut it down. Why? Shut it down. So if you're going to do that, these agencies are the creation of Congress. Trump doesn't have the power to just unilaterally shut down the Department of Energy or the Department of Education. Congress has got to do that. So do it. Doesn't take a constitutional amendment. Didn't take a constitutional amendment to create them. Eliminate. Blue pencil, we used to say. If I were Trump, I would tell my Department of Energy head or Department of Education head, whoever they are, I don't know who they are, your job is to gut the department. And at the end of 4 years, I want you to have one employee remaining, and that's you. Anybody have a problem with that? Any chats here? This is from LMI. I was watching OAN because of you, Graham. Stopped after you no longer were with them. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it a lot. You know, I left One America in 2020, and I miss our nightly meetings. What I used to say was the Daily Ledger was a nightly tea party meeting, back when we had tea parties. And I thank you for watching at One America. Some of you watched me doing the news in San Diego during the 90s and the aughts. And I appreciate that. So I have a double thank you for if you go all the way back to San Diego. Some of you, a few of you, not many, go back to Monterey when I did the news in the Salinas, Monterey, Santa Cruz area in the late 80s during the 1989 earthquake. And so I have a triple thank you for that. And a couple of you, I know you're out there, date all the way back to when I did the news as a rookie in El Centro, California, USA. By the way, the reason I say it that way, El Centro, California, USA, is because my mom, when she would send me care packages, I was 25, she would address it El Centro, California, USA, because I'm not sure in her mind, you know, being in San Francisco and the way they think up there, just a little bit ivory tower-ish, that El Centro was even in the United States. So she would address things, Graham Ledger, El Centro, California, US. But thank you. I don't know what else to say if you date all the way back to El Centro, except that you're old. And but I appreciate it, and maybe you more than anybody else can understand how I've changed and how I've grown, I hope, over those years. Steve just emails me here. Prior to the Supreme Court case, oh, this is the same one. Typo 1 senator. Okay, Steve, this was the email that you sent me regarding the United States Senate. Let's see if we can do one more before we close up the program. I have about 5 minutes left. Cynthia says, close the border, Newsom needs to go. I try and remind people in California that Newsom isn't the problem. Gavin Newsom is not the problem. Kamala Harris is not the problem. The legislature in California is not the problem. The Attorney General is not the problem. The problem is the people who are electing these morons, these Marxist morons. And make no mistake, Gavin Newsom is a Marxist moron. And the little bit I know about him, he's not very intelligent. But he comes from the pedigree that puts him in a position of power, almost by birthright, frankly. And that's the way it is in California politically. You know, I went to school with the Pelosi clan. I don't talk about this very much. And frankly, I don't know which vein of the Pelosi clan it was, but the person I went to school with, Dad was in politics. In fact, he was a supervisor of San Francisco, and San Francisco doesn't have a city council because it's a city and a county, same size, same entity. So it just has a board of supervisors, which is radical now. But this Pelosi, I don't know. I don't remember how he governed. But it was just before the time of Mayor Moscone and the assassination of Mayor Moscone. And I went to school with Moscone's kids too. Anyway, San Francisco is a disaster zone now, and it's because of the people who vote those people in. Gavin Newsom isn't the problem. The problem is the people who voted for him. 70% strong during the recall. I think 67% strong during his last election. You know, people are talking about recalling him. What's the point? He was just reelected in 22. He has 20 months left on his term. It takes about 18 months to get a recall going. Are you people, I mean, come on. This is the problem with the Republican leadership in California, or just the Republican rank and file. What are you thinking? And you people who stay behind in California say, oh, I'm here to fix the problem. I ask you every time when you say that, what's your plan? What's your plan? In my mind, there's only one plan, and it's what I did, as painful as it was, and that is to leave California. Take your tax footprint out of there. And if we did this en masse, California would suffer and suffer hard and choke off the beast. And I hope Donald Trump does this. I hope he removes assets, federal assets, permanently out of closes offices. You know, California likes to boast it's the 5th largest economy in the world. Okay, see how you function without all the Navy bases in California and the Army bases and the Marine Corps bases. See how you function, California. See how you function without a big footprint of federal offices. Let's see how you function, 5th largest economy. It would go into the tank. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. There is no plan to fix California because Patton wouldn't fight this fight. Patton would walk away from the California battle because it's not winnable because you're outnumbered. The only way is to pull out and cut off and choke off California because California is a cancer, and many of the ideas that have destroyed California are now permeating other states. Now, I'm not just talking Illinois and New York. I'm talking Texas and Florida. I see it firsthand in Florida. We beat back in Florida by a razor thin. It wasn't a. It was not a majority. It was a plurality because these were 2 constitutional amendment attempts in Florida, and I think they garnered 55%, 56%, both of them. One was to enshrine basically abortion on demand at any time in Florida. More than 50% of the people voted for that, but it didn't get 60%, so it didn't pass. And then, of course, legalizing marijuana, which I don't want to get into debate with you potheads, okay? But that is part of the formula to destroy a state, is legalizing marijuana. And I'm not going to get into the details. It's another time. And if you want to email me and tell me I'm stupid because you smoke pot all the time, that's fine with me. GrahamLedger411@gmail.com. I'm going to try and keep these programs to 1 hour because I don't want to waste your time. And I know you got other things to do. And it's now coming up on 11 o'clock Eastern and 8 o'clock on the West Coast. And you have a life, but I would like to meet with you on a regular basis. So would you please tell me in an email? I figure if you take the time to email me on this, it's important. Gmail for Graham Ledger 411, GrahamLedger411@gmail.com. Answer this question. What time would you like to see the program? Okay, more or less. Morning or evening, but I'm not going to do too late, okay, in the evening if you choose that. And then what day or days? I'd rather not do it on Sunday. Saturday I try and golf. So, keep that in mind. Maybe keep it during the week, Monday through Friday. So what day and what time? And I really appreciate you tuning in. The few of you who hung in there during my technical difficulties. But I think I got it figured out. I mean, it seems like it. John, and even though Ghost Walker Airsoft Tech left me, I'm sure Ghost Walker will tune into the recorded version here and see, hey, he got his audio fixed. So thanks for hanging with me. And remember, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Yeah. And evil can only prevail when good is silent. God bless you.